talk to you, to have your book and autograph.
Yes.
And
Funny, I got the same book here. I have a long background in studying science, biological sciences, biochemistry and genetics, but the rest of biological sciences and psychology. And I'm really interested because I came out of the Second World War. I was actually born in Poland, but it was part of Germany when I was born there during the Second World War, 1942. And I was born just very close to Poznan. Little town, I was called Września, but that's, I don't know if, that's probably it. And I went there about 3 years ago to try to find, to see if I could find anything in the library about the background. We ended up in Germany and then went to Canada. My parents came from Latvia and Estonia. And the war was very crazy. I was a war child. And we were refugees, and I was left behind because my mother had to get off the roads because the communists were chasing us in tanks and trucks. And the Allies, we like to think of them as the good guys, they were using us as target practice and shooting at us from planes on dirt roads in horse-drawn hay wagons. And my mother went through the fields, and it was winter, but she had 6 kids with her, and she couldn't handle 6 kids, so she had to leave 4 children behind. And her sister found out, she got out, and then her sister found out, and then she came and found us and reunited us with the family. So it was a tough childhood. And when I was 6 years old, I listened to people argue, adults, about really silly things I thought that were not very important. And the thought came to me, there must be a way that human beings can live in harmony. And I'm going to find out how. So that's my whole life has been about that. It's always, we could live better than we do. How in so many ways. In how we think, in what we do, in how we eat, in what we feel, in what we build, in what we do. So we could all live better than we do. So that's always been my interest. Anything I can do that makes quality of life better, I want to do it. So I studied psychology, and I do meditation, stillness practice where you get really quiet and feel what it feels like to be alive. And that's all part of when you talk about health. It's all part of it because health is based on human nature, right?
Tell us your age. I'm 50, so I'm the one first saying the age.
Yeah, okay, so 50, so 32 years difference, right?
Okay, so that's a nice age, and you look great, and you are doing so much, and also for other people, you are doing a lot. And I found your book very interesting. Those are marked, and I would like to start with cholesterol. Cholesterol is something that almost everybody after being 40 is being for the level of cholesterol, and then we are all forced to take some pills. I would like you to start from this.
Okay, but let me back up a little bit more. So when you think about health, you have to ask the question, first of all, what is health and who invented health? Well, it wasn't the doctors. The doctors did not invent health. The pharmaceutical companies did not invent health. The lawyers did not invent health. The governments did not invent health. Health was invented by life in nature.
Correct.
So if you have health issues, they mostly come from getting out of line with nature. And it's not just nature outside, but also your nature inside. When you live in line with nature and your nature, health is the result. There is not a single person who has ever died from a pharmaceutical drug deficiency. Right? As long as there have been creatures on the planet, they have always been made out of food, water, air, and sunlight. That's it. a genetic program that life invented and perfected over long times. And we are the result of that experiment of nature. And we are adapted, our genetic program adapts us to live in line with nature, from which we are made, from which our air, our water, and our food comes. And when we live out of line with nature, then the program doesn't work. And then we get sick. Cholesterol is made out of small pieces of molecules. They're 2 carbon fragments called acetates. And 15 of those are strung together to make a long chain that then gets cyclized. We have the means to make cholesterol. And cholesterol is really important because one thing is cholesterol regulates how fluid our cell membranes are. That's important for the function of the cell membranes. So the idea of not having any cholesterol or blocking cholesterol production in the body is kind of stupid because it serves many functions. So one is in the membranes. The second one is vitamin D is made from cholesterol. The third one is the male and female hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, are made from cholesterol. The adrenal hormones, the adrenosteroid hormones, are also made from cholesterol. So that's cortisol and some of the other one, aldosterone, which is for water regulation in the body. They're made from cholesterol. And the bile acids, which help with fat digestion, they're also made from cholesterol. So cholesterol has a lot of functions in the body. And so we know we can make cholesterol in our liver, but also in our cells. We can make cholesterol out of other things. It's not an essential nutrient. But one of the things that's interesting about cholesterol is what we can make it, but we can't break it down once it's made. So what has to happen to cholesterol? It has to be, it goes to the cells and it's returned to the liver and ends up in the bile duct and it's dumped into the digestive tract and it's supposed to end up in the toilet. But if you don't have enough fiber in your diet, so you don't eat enough plant-based foods, then up to 94% of the cholesterol that's supposed to get out of your body is reabsorbed. So you lose your exit mechanism and then your cholesterol level goes up. If you live under stress, your body makes more cholesterol because the stress hormones are made out of cholesterol. If you eat too many carbohydrates, then you push cholesterol production because the carbohydrates turn into acetates. If you have too many acetates, they either get turned into fat, or they're turned into cholesterol, or they're turned into a whole bunch of other molecules. So
the triglycerides.
Triglycerides. Yeah? Oh yeah, TGs. Yeah, fatty acids, and then you're strung together, and then you make triglycerides out of it. The idea then is if you have too much cholesterol, then maybe you need to reduce stress, and maybe you need to eat more fiber, so that you make sure that the exit, so you lower production by lowering stress, and you improve the exit of cholesterol out of the body by taking more fiber. What the medical industry does, they give you statins. And statins block the production of cholesterol. But there's a problem with that because the same acetates, the same enzymes that make cholesterol also make other molecules that are important to health. One of those is coenzyme Q10. And coenzyme Q10 plays a role in your mitochondria in energy production. It's super important there. Well, if you block the production of that, then you're going to hurt your energy production in your mitochondria. And then what happens? You get sore muscles and low energy. And those are some of the side effects of statins. And the industry, until I don't know if they do anymore, but the industry did not allow doctors to give people extra coenzyme Q10 when they took statins. They wouldn't allow them to do that. I think that's maybe changed now. But the idea, I mean, it's really crazy. Everything that's going on in your body depends on your mitochondria. That's where all your energy is made. If you block energy production, your health has to go down. Then things can get done, and then you're tired, and then you get foggy brain, then you have muscle aches. You need a screwdriver, but instead of a screwdriver to take out a screw, you just hit it with a sledgehammer. That's like stupid. If you look at the illnesses that human beings have, and then you understand that health comes from nature. So every creature that eats food in nature eats its food fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, maybe in part seasonal. That's how every creature in nature eats. Fresh, whole, raw, organic, local. So that's the question you have to ask. Well, how much of the food you eat is fresh? How much of it is whole food? How much of it is organic? Right? How much of it is raw? Fresh, whole, raw, organic, local. And if most people would have to say, well, I don't eat a lot of fresh food. Most of my foods are processed. I don't eat raw. I cook everything or fry everything. Organic, oh no, there's pesticides in my food. Fresh, whole, raw, oh no, I don't eat raw foods. Because somebody told me that raw food is hard to digest. It's not true. It's only true if your digestive system isn't used to them. Then you have to take some time to get used to it, right? So most people would have to say that I don't eat fresh, whole, raw, organic, local. And if you then look at what are the problems we have in our health, most of those problems come from not eating fresh, whole, raw, organic.
In your book, I found that in 1988 there was a general report about nutrition and health in the United States, and 15 out of 21 deaths in the United States involves nutrition. And then I read that heart disease and stroke responds for almost 44% of deaths. Cancer, 22, more than 22%. Diabetes, almost 2%. Accidents, more than 4%. Lung diseases, almost 4%. Then pneumonia and flu, over 3%. Suicides, over 1%, almost 1.5%. And liver diseases, 1.1%.
So if fresh, whole, raw, organic is the way we're supposed to eat, but we don't, and then we have illnesses. You could say, if you wanted to say one reason for why people get ill, just one summary: processing. The way we've changed foods. Either we take out nutrients that we need, or we add toxic molecules that don't belong in the body, or we don't digest them properly, in which case we create toxicity and malnutrition in our digestive system. And pretty much everything that goes wrong with the body, other than accidents and falling off a bridge or falling off whatever, or getting run over by a car. But most of our degenerative diseases are the result of processing that takes out essential nutrients, adds toxins, and changes molecules in a way that don't work in the body given our genetic program. So processing is the big word. And the biggest processing problem is the damage we've done to oils when we turn the oils in seeds and nuts into colorless, odorless, tasteless oils in plastic bottles that everybody buys. And when we fry foods in those oils, Actually, more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits would happen to people if they changed from damaged oils to oils that are made with health in mind. And oils are very, very sensitive. They're damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. They're the most sensitive of all of our nutrient molecules. They need the most care, and we give them the least care. So we damage them by, industry damages them when they make them, and then we damage them more in the frying pan. So if you change, if you do nothing else except change, yet stop frying foods and stop using damaged oils, a lot of benefits, go back to eating seeds and nuts, a lot of benefits would happen to your health.
But I agree with you fully, but we will come back to good and bad oils in the second part of the discussion. But I would come back to cholesterol because, everybody is now talking all over the world about cholesterol and that we all should reduce it. And in your book, I found glucose or sugars, especially refined sugars, being responsible for excess of cholesterol and also excess of TGs, which are basically the main component of our extra fat in our body, right? So I'm trying to find the guilty for the diseases that I was just listing according to this report that I found in you. What should we do? Because if everybody is talking about cholesterol, that it's guilty of the heart diseases, but it's not the one to blame, then who should be blamed? Meaning, which food component or which our plate component? Because I wouldn't call what we eat, this junk food, I wouldn't call food.
Yeah, the worst is the damaged oils. And the second, right behind it, is refined carbohydrates, sugars, white starches. Because sugar, when you eat more carbohydrate than you need, and that's easy to do because the sugar is refined, so when you eat it, it's absorbed very fast, and then your blood sugar goes up, and that's toxic. So your body has to do something about it. So insulin is secreted. It drives the sugar into your cells. In your cells, you will burn what you need for cell activity. But what is in excess of what you need now has to be turned into fat. So most overweight does not come from eating fats. It comes from eating carbohydrates. And the research is pretty clear that carbohydrates in excess of what you burn turn on the gene for fat production in the body. It's called fatty acid synthase. And so you make fat out of any sugar you didn't burn. So you should never eat more carbohydrates than you burn. And they also turn off, this is like really interesting. So they turn on the gene for making fat in the body, and they turn off the genes for burning fat in the body. So the more carbohydrates you eat, the more fat you're going to make, and the harder it's going to be to burn the fat that you're making. And so carbohydrates, when in 1977, there was a report written by the Senator McGovern of the U.S. Senate. It was called the Report on Nutrition and Health, the McGovern Report on Nutrition and Health. And in that, they said we should eat less fat, we should eat more carbs. That's what they said. So then the Department of Agriculture built a food pyramid. And on the food pyramid, they put the carbohydrates at the bottom. That's what you're supposed to eat the most of. Put the fats at the top. That's what you're supposed to eat the least of. They didn't the damage done to oils for the problems caused by fats. They just ignored that. And then they created this food pyramid that went out to everybody, and people started eating that way, eating more carbs. And overweight in the United States went from 25 to 60% of the population in 20 years. And nobody pointed at the food pyramid and eating the carbs as the cause of it, but they should have.
There was a new pyramid that crossed it as the wrong pyramid.
Well, they've always been wrong, because the Department of Agriculture and the government are beholden to the industry. So they can't just say, don't eat carbs. Kellogg's would go nuts, and all the people who make the breakfast cereals, they would all go crazy. And they would, they have strong lobbies. And so you don't get truth out of government. You get, government is about money. Government is not about health. Government is not about peace. Government is not about joy. Government is not about love. Government is about money, right? And so government works with industry, and you can't just, as a government, you can't just say, oh, this whole thing, you got to change that. But instead, so they made this food pyramid, and people used it, and they still use it, and now they're saying, oh, ultra-processed foods cause a lot of problems. Sure they do. They always have. But nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's doing anything about it, because you would have to make a law. I mean, if government was really interested in your health, they would make a law that forces you to eat fresh, whole, raw, organic foods, and would punish the people who make foods that are processed, that are damaged, that have toxins in them, that make you sick. But the government wouldn't touch that. No government will touch that. So then you have to, as an individual, you have to educate yourself. And then you have to make choices by thinking it through yourself. How was it in nature before we were civilized?
Coming back to what you said about the pyramid, we eat, let's say, light products, which are with a reduced content of fat. And in your book, I found a very clear information that we should not avoid fat, but we should avoid processed products, including refined fat, as the content, as the ingredient.
Mostly the oils, like the liquid oils that we use, they've been treated by industry in a way to give them a long shelf life. But oils by nature have a short shelf life, because they're very sensitive to damage by light, oxygen, and heat. So they have figured out how to do that. And when an oil is made the way industry makes it, about 0.5 to 1% of the molecules are damaged. They're turned into something that never existed in nature, that life does not know how to deal with in the human genetic program, right? And if you have a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged by the processing, in that tablespoon, do you know how many damaged molecules there are in that tablespoon? Do you know?
Millions.
How many? Give me
Millions.
a number. How many millions? Okay, 100 million. So 100 million has 8 zeros, right?
Yes.
100 million. 1,000 is 3, million is 6, 100 million is 2 more. So 8 zeros behind the 1, right? Okay.
Yes.
And I do this on purpose, because we don't know, and nobody gets told, that in that tablespoon that is 1% damage, the number is a 6 followed by 19 zeros in 1 tablespoon. So that means your number was 11 zeros too low, right? 19 zeros. So that's what is 11 zeros? 1,000, a million, a billion, a trillion would be 12 zeros. Okay. Now, why I say that is I say to people, look, you're going to fly somewhere to go to holidays to see your family, right? And you're about to get on the airplane, and somebody who only tells the truth taps you on the shoulder and says, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying in this trip is 100 billion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the airplane? Mm-hmm. Did you get on the airplane? No. I was in Ireland. I said to them, I would canoe back to Canada. I would not get an airplane. Yeah. Because what we're doing is we're doing something to ourselves. They say, oh, it's only 1%. That's what the industry says. Oh, it's only 1%. It's 99% good. It's only 1% bad. Right? But we are underestimating the damage we're doing to our health by 100 billion times. When I ask this question in lectures, I do that a lot. And when people don't know, and sometimes some people say 10 molecules, 1,000 molecules, million molecules. Nobody ever gets within a billion times. We always estimate a billion or more times too low what we're doing to ourselves. It's huge. A billion, 60 quintillion damaged molecules. A tablespoon of oil that is 1% damaged will get you more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells.
Yes, but there must be some truth in what you are saying, because when we, in 2014, me and my husband, we changed our diet after a cleaning session of the body, meaning at totally, let's say, it was a hunger detox. So I was not eating for 10 days, actually. Yeah, fasting. And then after this session, I decided that we eat only organic. And we stopped using oil in the plastic bottle. So we used only olive oil and some flax oil, and also pumpkin seed oil and hemp oil, and let's say some other for maybe sesame oil and some others. But also we used only organic vegetables, and we reduced a lot meat consumption. Now we don't use meat, and we rather eat organic fish, and not too often. So we reduced many unhealthy things almost to zero, except for some wedding parties and some vacations and some hotel conferences. And then within 4 months, in my case, it was like 18 kilos less. So I reduced the size of my clothes from 42 to 36 size. Went down by 25 kilos within 5 months. So there must have been some processes on the biochemical level that we didn't understand. What happened? What happened?
Yeah, well, so what happened? Well, two things. You get more nutrients, you get less toxins, right? So so sickness comes from lack of essential nutrients that your body can't make, but that you have to bring in.
Yes.
Or too many poisons that don't belong in the body, or poor digestion, which gets you both toxicity and deficiency. Those are the three things. It's not more complicated than that. Living in line with nature is about doing that, right? Because pesticides were invented by human beings. There were no pesticides in nature, right? We invented those, and we spray them everywhere. When I got poisoned by pesticides a long time ago, that's what got me onto the health kick. 1980, I got poisoned by pesticides, right? When they taught me how to spray them, but they don't have, medicine has no cure for most of the pesticides we spray. So we throw them all over the environment. They're on our foods. We eat them. And when we get sick from them, then medicine throws a pill at a symptom, but they don't get rid of the pesticides. They don't have anything. So I went to the doctor. I said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? She said, nothing. And it was because of that, nothing, that I started saying, okay, I know biochemistry. I understand biology. I have to figure out how to do it myself. This is my responsibility. Of course, I sprayed the pesticides too. That was my responsibility too, right? And so then I started looking at oils, and they were so confusing. They said, okay, omega-6 is an essential nutrient. You can't make it. You have to have it. You've got to bring it in. If you don't get enough, your health goes down. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. This is what essential means, right? If you bring it back in adequate quantities before you die, then all of the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows what to do when you give it what it needs to do. And that there have been identified biochemical reactions in the body that require that nutrient. That's what it means, essential. So this says omega-6 is essential, and the very next study I read says omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And I'm going, what? I have to have it and it kills me, right? It's like, and it was that contradiction. And because I was sick and I need to have honest answers, right? So it was that contradiction. I said, I have to understand why. That's what made me look at how oils are made and how much damage is done to oils and how much damage is done in the frying pan. And the fact that they're in plastics, and plastic dissolves in oils. So you get plastic in your body, it doesn't belong in there. And there are pesticides in the oil because they don't use organically grown seeds. And then you use the oil for frying, which damages it probably another 3 to 6 times more. So you're doing an enormous amount of damage to yourself when you use those oils, and especially when you use those oils for frying. And that all came out of this one question. Omega-6 is essential and it kills you. No, it's like, how can that contradict? How can that be true? How can they both be true? And I was assuming, so I said, it's the processing that we do to oils that creates that problem. Why are we processing these oils? Why can't we just eat seeds and nuts? You could just eat seeds and nuts if they're not roasted and they're not salted and they're not old and rancid. If you eat seeds and nuts, you get the oils in the way that nature makes them. If you want to use oils that are in the same shape that nature makes them, then you have to protect them from light, from oxygen, and from heat damage while they're being pressed and filtered and settled and filled. And you never, ever, 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 ever want to use oils that are made with health in mind for frying, because frying wrecks them. They're the most sensitive nutrients. Frying pan a frying pan is like an atom bomb. It does its damage more quietly.
Okay, then I have pancakes. What type of fats do I use for frying?
Where you turn the pancakes brown or black. If you leave them in too long, they turn black. You're changing molecules. So you're changing the pancake molecules. You're changing the oil because it turns into smoke. And you're burning the food, so you're changing the molecules in the food too. Frying is really stupid from a health perspective. Okay? So if you can't do pancakes, why aren't you eating grains? Why aren't you eating oatmeal? Why aren't you cooking organic brown rice or organic wheat or organic rye? Why do you have to? Why do you have to fry it? Then you cook those in water, and then you haven't damaged them. You've damaged them a little bit, because you destroy the enzymes and you destroy any probiotics that are on them, and you maybe lose some of the minerals in the cooking water. So you're already doing some damage. Because remember, every creature, all the chickens and all the birds eat the grain whole. They don't cook it at all, and they certainly don't fry it. Mm-hmm. Right? So you know, or then they say, well, if I can't fry an egg, what do? Well, you can eat the egg raw. That's what the fox does. You can soft boil it. You can hard boil it. You can water scramble it. So there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to cook, but even cooking in water is not natural. No, if the food is contaminated, then cooking it in water kills unfriendly microorganisms, bacteria. But your food should not be contaminated and it isn't contaminated when it's fresh. Fresh, whole, raw, organic. You don't have a problem. You know, you have a garden and you do it naturally and you grow it organically. You go and pick we used to pick the carrot, wipe it in our pants, wipe the dirt off in our pants, and just eat it. We didn't wash it with anything, yes. Right?
We did the same.
Yeah, so when the food is fresh, it's not contaminated. If it's contaminated, you're doing something wrong already. Right? And
I agree, but I'd like to come to a second part of the question, meaning if you could say what types, in this perspective that we are now talking, what type of fat sources are bad, and what have you found that is good for our health? Because in your book, I read on the page 44 that there are a lot of symptoms. It concerns skin, it concerns hair loss, it can be some liver degeneration, and many symptoms that we could call disease. And we go to a doctor and we get some pills, but we don't solve the problem.
We don't fix the problem, So when it comes to oils or fats in general, there are lots of different fats, saturated fats, beef and pork and chicken and, all the different oils. And there are a lot of different fats. But when it comes to what is essential from fats, and by the way, let me back off. In carbohydrates, like sugar and starches, there are no essential carbohydrates. There's nothing in carbohydrates that you can't get elsewhere. Okay? But when it comes to fats, there are two essential fatty acids, omega-3, which is called alpha-linolenic acid, plant-based, and omega-6, linoleic acid, also plant-based. They're essential. You can't make them. You have to have them. Every cell in your body requires them. They have many functions in all your cells and all your tissues and all your organs and all your glands and all your systems. The most sensitive of our nutrients. That's why they need care. Okay? And if you don't get enough of either of them long enough, then you die. You have to have them. These are that's why essential. You have to have them. And this is not a marketing term. This is a research term. This is a science term. In marketing, they try to tell you everything is essential that they're selling. Right? In research, it's only essential if you die if you don't get enough. Right? And then if you get enough, if you bring it back into the diet and optimize your intake, all of your problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. And there have been biochemical reactions have been identified in which those essential fatty acids are required. Now, you need them both, but they have to also be in the right ratio. Because if you get too much of one, it'll crowd out the other. And if you get too much of the other, it'll crowd out the one. So it's important that you get them both in the right ratio. Okay? And that's all. From all the fats, from anything in the whole world of fats, those are the only two things you have to have. The saturated fats, your body can make it. Mm-hmm. The monounsaturated fats, like you get in olive oil, your body can make those out of sugar and starch. Same as saturated fats, your body can make those out of sugar and starch. But from the essential fatty acids, those two, when you get them right and they're not damaged, then within your cells, your body makes dozens of different molecules from them. And they work like hormones. They regulate activity in all your cells on a moment-to-moment basis. They're super, super, super important. And the idea, we had people in America, they went on fat-free diets because they were so worried about, fats are bad. And they were just that story with the pyramid, eat less fat. And I went to the Vegetarian Society one year, and they invited me as a speaker. They were all on low-fat diets. Low-fat diet is 10% or less of your calories come from fats. That was a low-fat. So I got up and I said, so I have a question for you. How many of you are on low-fat diets? And all the hands went up, right? And I said, how many of you have dry skin? This is in Las Vegas. So when you're in the desert, dry skin shows up really well, right? How many of you have dry skin? All the hands went up. And I said, so here's the thing. There's a lot of good things you can say about a plant-based diet. But the one thing about the low-fat diet is you are not getting the fats you need, because when you optimize the right fats in your diet, they will form a barrier in your skin, and your skin will become soft, smooth, and velvety. If you have dry skin, you need more of the right kind of oils. And not everybody believed me, because the narrative in the society was different, right? But some people listened to it, and they had dry skin, and they were on low-fat diets. And I made a suggestion. We were making oils with health in mind that are undamaged. They tried it, and the feedback I got, it's like, oh my God, that was amazing. My skin is really nice now, and I have energy. Because when you go on a low-fat diet, you also lose energy. Because omega-3 and omega-6, especially omega-3, is the molecule of all of our nutrition molecules that gets you the most energy. And we work with athletes that we gave them a blend of oils, a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, so a tablespoon per 25 kilograms of body weight per day, mixed in food, spread out over the course of the day, not used for frying. Within 30 days, the athletes, if they did their sport to exhaustion, had 40 to 60% increase in their performance. That's how much more energy they got, just from getting the right oils with omega-3s. And we had more omega-3 in that oil blend than omega-6, because most people, 99% of the population, of Western populations, Europe and North America, do not get enough omega-3 for optimum health. 99%. This is the single most widespread essential nutrient deficiency. And so we came out with flaxseed oil in 1986. When I learned all of this, I wrote the book, and then we came out with flaxseed oil. And I used it as my only oil, because it was made with health in mind. But eventually I became omega-6 deficient on flaxseed oil, because it has a lot of omega-3 but not enough omega-6. And then we developed a blend that has a better balance, twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. Flax is 4 times more omega-3 than omega-6. So flax is the only oil that can make you omega-6 deficient. Most other oils have a lot of omega-6s, and most people are deficient in omega-3s. But you need them both, and you need them in the right ratio, because they run through the same enzyme systems to do opposing functions in your body. And so you need to get the ratio right so that they both get to do their work. Very, very important.
In your book, I found a page which is 236 page, and you say about best oils, that it's hemp oil, flaxseed oil, pumpkin seed oil, and olive oil, and some others, also sesame oil, but also fish oil. Tell us how do you involve or consume those oils that easy to implement in a daily consumption, let's say, habits.
So there's some controversy in the marketplace that is dishonest, and that's always true in the marketplace, because people will say whatever they need to say in order to make you think that you need what they have, so you buy it, right? That's marketing, right? And you can't lie, but you can imply. You make it sound like, but you can't say what isn't true, but you can say things in a way that will mislead people into thinking that what you're saying is true, without actually lying. And that's the art of marketing. So there are people who say the only reason you need ALA and LA, the two essential fatty acids, is because the body makes some other things out of them. That's not true. And the body makes many things out of essential fatty acid, and you can be completely plant-based and never eat a fish, and have your body, your cells make the EPA and the DHA that people use fish oils for. But here's one of the problems, and why I have never recommended fish oils, and why I no longer eat fish. So if you look at the sensitivity of the fatty acids, so saturated fatty acids, monounsaturated, and then linoleic acid, which is doubly unsaturated, and ALA, which is triply unsaturated, and EPA and DHA, which are 5 and 6 times unsaturated. It means have double bond. Each double bond makes the molecule more chemically sensitive, right? So if the stability of saturated fat is 1, then stability of monounsaturated, like olive oil, is 2.5. And the stability of omega-6 is 6.25, less stable. And then omega-3, alpha-linolenic acid, is about 32, I think 31 times less stable than the saturated fat. And the fish oil is 150 times less stable than saturated fat. So fish oils are super, super, super sensitive to damage. And in being made, because they're more sensitive than the oils that are 1% damaged, they're mostly linoleic acid, omega-6 oils. Well, if you have a lot of omega-3 in an oil like that, it'll maybe be 5% damaged. And the fish oil will be 25% damaged. And because the fish oils are so sensitive, more damage is done to the fish oils than is done to the seed oils. You eat less of it, but it's more damaged. And so what we decided to do, we need omega-3 and omega-6. They need to be made with health in mind. They're in glass. You put a box around them to cut the light out. They're kept refrigerated. Even when we ship them to Europe and Asia, they're shipped refrigerated. So we're taking a lot of care of these oils. It's like ice cream. Everybody keeps ice cream cold, right? And steaks are frozen. So everybody keeps those, but people don't want to do it with oils. But they need to do it with oils because they're more sensitive than ice cream. You can drink the ice cream, it'll still be okay, right? Because it's pretty stable. It won't be frozen, but it'll still be stable. But the oils, you can't do that with. So I never used the fish oil because of how sensitive they are to damage. And now the research has shown that fish is now the dirtiest meat on the planet. Because, we've dumped all our waste and all our chemicals. They all end up in the ocean. And in the ocean, they concentrate up the food chain. So algae have the least, and the krill have less. Have a little more than that. And the little fish that eat the krill have more than that. And the big fish eat the little fish. they have more of those toxins in their meat. And I was fishing in Alaska one year. Somebody invited me to go salmon fishing in Alaska. It was beautiful. Alaska's beautiful. It's like, but the fish way up there in the north where nobody lives, they also have PCBs and dioxins in the fish because they go everywhere. Because you can't isolate a piece of ocean, so they go everywhere. And so you can't get fish. And then if they're farmed, they use all kinds of garbage on the farm fish. That's even worse. So from the perspective of what should you do, get the basics, optimize your intake, get the ratio right, make sure they're not damaged, and let your body do all the conversions into the other molecules that it knows how to do.
We should basically focus on having much better quality of essential oils, have the right ratio, and have it as fresh as possible, and served cold, not fried, and also kept away from light. Not just that the bottle is in the front of, I don't know, a kitchen window.
And we've actually, the oil is refrigerated in the factory. It's refrigerated. If it's shipped for longer than 2 weeks, it's shipped refrigerated. In the stores, it's stored refrigerated. And when you buy it and take it home, you keep it in the refrigerator. And then, of course, you know, when you close the refrigerator, the light goes out. You don't know that. When you open your fridge, the light's on, right? But when you close the fridge is dark, so there's no light in there. And then once you open the bottle, then air gets in. So you start to get oxygen reacting with the oil. So we say once you open the bottle, you use it up within 8 weeks, and that's not hard to do. You know, and I use about 4 tablespoons in winter. I weigh 80 kilograms, somewhere between 80 and 85 kilograms, and I use 2 or 3 tablespoons in summer. In winter, you burn more oil for energy. And by the way, omega-3 turns on the genes that burn fat in your cells and turns off the gene for fat production. So what we recommend people do is when they start understanding that they need good oils, that you bring in the oils, you lower your carbohydrate, your sugar and starch intake. You might even want to lower your grain intake. I don't eat much grain. I don't eat bread. I don't eat pasta. I don't keep any of that. I eat lots of green vegetables, and I eat some fruit, and I eat seeds and nuts, and and I pay attention to my intake. And then I get tahini. You know what tahini is? Sesame tahini. I dump the sesame oil because it's an omega-6 oil. Then I put in my oil that is omega-3 and 6 balanced, but more omega-3, mix it in there. And then I put lots of spices in it, like cloves and cinnamon and cayenne and ginger and turmeric and black seed. So I put in spices because the spices have lots of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. And
yes,
the oil makes a fire, but fire throws sparks. So you need spark control, and the antioxidants and anti-inflammatories in those spices do really good spark control. So I'm 82 years old. I have no pain in any of my joints. I have lots of energy. And, when I was 38, I had arthritis. It wasn't really serious, but if I put a little pressure on my knees, by bending them, I had pain in my knees.
So it went away.
Then I got poisoned, and then I straightened out, and now I have nothing. And that's not news. The people who go in the direction of fresh, whole, raw, organic, and they actually pay attention to it. You can reverse just about everything because life knows how to create a healthy body, but you have to give it what it needs to do it. And when you do it wrong, toxins cause pain and a deficiency causes pain, right? Mm-hmm. And the processing causes the damage, the deficiency and the toxicity that gives you pain. So you basically have to say the food industry is not your friend, but nature is your friend. Eat the way nature makes foods. Leave all the processed foods on the shelf.
Yeah, I just, before we finish, I wanted to tell you that I also read a book from Dr. Rath that was telling why animals do not have heart diseases, heart attack, and also a Danish doctor, Udo Erasmus, who said about cholesterol as a scientific lie. And
those books will not be recommended by people who sell you the stuff that makes you sick. So you're not going to, the medical profession does not listen to these guys. Actually, Dr. Ross is a medical doctor. He worked with Linus Pauling, and they figured out that cholesterol is not the enemy, but oxidized cholesterol can be a problem. And then there's a form of it that's called lipoprotein little a. They figured that because human beings don't make vitamin C, which is an antioxidant, that cholesterol became an antioxidant. When it gets oxidized, it then starts to cause problems. And when you take enough vitamin C, then the dangerous fraction of cholesterol goes way down. So Linus Pauling and Matthias Roth worked together to sort that out. And
he made a picture.
Yeah, there he is. So
if we want to find the guilty for our diseases, it's probably what you are saying: some malnutrition or some deficiency of some essential nutrients.
Toxicity.
Yes. So this gives us lack of energy or pain as a signaling system from our body. And instead of taking care of our nutrients, we go to a doctor, a clinic, and we learn what kind of medicine or drug or pill we should take. But we are not being educated what should we actually eat. So I hope that your book will be published in Poland, also in the Polish language, so people can get through this fatty book and get the whole picture, because maybe it's not an easy book and you have to like chemistry to follow some chapters, but as you say in this book, you can skip those chapters that you think they are too chemical and eat the rest, and you still have a picture. And I agree that it's very understandable and very useful.
We actually, when I wrote the book, we actually worked it out so that people, children in grade 9 could understand it.
I got the impression that this is a textbook for school that should be actually consumed as education in high school, because it's understandable and it sounds like it's necessary.
So let me say something about if you're finding the guilty party. You know, we can point the finger at the food industry for damaging our foods. We can point the finger at the doctors for not studying nutrition, because the body's made out of food. So if you want to work in health, you need to know what the body's made of. Okay? And we need to point the finger at ourselves for putting up with it and not doing our own education and not learning what we need to do and not doing what we need to do. So the guilty party is, we're all guilty.
But I'm very grateful for your time, for all your efforts that you also made to create that book, which took you a lot of years to compose. This sounds a little bit like detectives
It
work.
was definitely detective work, and I wasn't working in a job. I moved in with my mother when I was, I think, 41 years old. I was 41 years old. I moved back in with my mother for free room and board, so I could do the work, and that took me 6 years to write, and then the second version, which you have, that took another 3 years.
Yeah, it sounds like a really huge job. So I would like to thank you on behalf of all the readers. And I understand that there are hundreds of thousands of readers all over the world. And I hope that this message that you are sending in this bottle will reach all homes all over the world, because this is about essential oils, but it sounds like a very essential knowledge. So I thank you very much for this time.
Thank you for having me on. This is fun. Thank you.